Welcome to Bob Larson Live. Tonight, war in Israel. Is this the beginning of the end? Tonight we're going to have a live chat discussion on the latest events regarding the war in Israel between Israel and Hamas terrorists from the Gaza Strip. Is this just another outbreak, just another conflict in a troubled part of the world? Or is what's happening a signal event in human history? I'm going to be drawing from my wealth of experience, having ministered in more than 100 countries of the world and observing end-time events for 5 decades. I do believe that what's going on now is different from similar skirmishes in the past. And it brings us just that much closer to the return of Jesus Christ. We are just 2 days away from our final seminar in 2023. I'm going to be right here in Phoenix, Arizona. Go to the website, boblarson.org, to get the details of the location. The seminar is at 7 o'clock. Doors open at 6:30. Get yourself there early. Get yourself a good seat. We're going to have a great time right here in my backyard, so to speak, in Phoenix, Arizona. Be there this coming Friday night. Yes, we are responding to chats. Got a few of them out there. Our good buddy Adrian is on the job, and so is David. Adrian says, pray for Israel. David says, pray for Israel. Be blessed. Idra, God bless you in the Pacific Northwest. Glad you're talking about this topic. Sylvia joining from Jacksonville, Florida. And I think that's Bruce. God bless Israel. Siege. Hello, Bob. God bless you. Video Kitten. God bless Israel. John. God bless everyone, including Israel. Mushroom Ministries are Do What Jesus Did leaders of the northeastern part of the United States. Tom and Margaret. Hello. Blessings to everybody. And Siege. Oh, what happened? I lost my screen here. I think I'm going to get it back. This technology thing, sometimes my finger just, how that little heat gets off your finger if you get it close to the screen. Siege says, something has been going on over there for a long time, and it has come to fruition. It's really sad to see all what's happening to the women and kids, of course. Alfredo, another conflict between the descendants of Jacob versus Ishmael or Esau. Well, actually, Isaac and Ishmael. Yukonon, I used to listen to Talk Back with Bob Larson. That's my 20-year stint for 2 to 3 hours a day on talk radio nationwide. Looking forward to hearing him on this topic tonight. Cindy, lost you again, Cindy. I'm sorry. My finger just doesn't seem to be working well tonight. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and heal their land. 2 Chronicles 7:14. Yes, Greg, love your brother Bob. And Siege again, ruled by dictators. This is not good for us. A God we trust. Diane, blessings from East Texas. Oh, Lucas and Diane. Shout out to Adrian, Idra, David, Tom, Margaret. All the Do What Jesus Did people. The Do What Jesus Did people are those who are involved in our deliverance teams all over the world. And we are going to be responding to more chats. But in the meantime, would you do that, please? It helps us in our standing with social media and YouTube. And share so that other people can hear about this tonight. And hit that notification bell. Get subscribed to our channel so you know what's going on. We're going to be talking about this subject tonight of Israel, what's going on, the terrible situation over there. It changes hour by hour. I checked a little bit ago. The last I saw, there are 2,300 people who have been killed, babies beheaded, in one kibbutz, 40 children shot, dead, children, families burned alive by violent, murderous, marauding kids. Most people don't know half the population of the Gaza Strip, from which this is coming, is under the age of 19. For the most part, these aren't even adults. They're kids on motorbikes and golf carts, waging war. This is outrageous, but look what they've done. It's resulted in way over 2,000 deaths so far. And of course, that's going to climb higher and higher and higher. Meanwhile, I do want to say to you that today is the last opportunity for you to sign up for our new streaming platform, Exdunamis, at a special discounted opportunity. That's tonight. Please take advantage of it. And if you want to know why, well, first of all, it's the first streaming platform in history dedicated to spiritual warfare based on the principles and the anointing and the calling of this ministry to set the captives free and to battle the forces of darkness aggressively with determination and boldness. Hundreds of videos are already up there. We're adding more all the time. Each month, we're going to have a special feature documentary. The very first one for the launch for the month of October is on the subject of the haunted of Nancy Riddle, which is my going to an actual haunted house. The real deal. Not the stuff you see in the paranormal shows. The real deal. And then performing an exorcism in that haunted house. And that's the exclusive extra bonus feature when you sign up right now. Why Exdunamis? X, the ancient symbol, Kairos symbol for Christ, and dunamis, of course, the Greek word for power. The biblical definition of Christ's power. It's entertaining. There's a lot of really interesting stuff there. Don't lose yourself in Amazon Prime, Hulu, and Netflix. Watch Exdunamis. A lot more entertaining and spiritual benefit. But not only that, it's very inspiring. Inspiring from the standpoint of you can learn how to get free in Jesus Christ. I mean, really free from all the powers of darkness, and your friends can too. But it's not only entertaining and inspiring, it's educational. There's information there, a wealth of it. You will not find it anywhere else. We have a special introductory subscription. Please take advantage of that. You might want to take advantage of a whole year's subscription. You get about 30% off doing that. This is the end of the special introductory opportunity. We've been saying that for days. It's an absolute reality at midnight tonight. So there's a QR code they'll put up on the screen. You can just take a picture of that with your phone and go right to it and sign up. Or you can just go to boblarson.org, click on the Dunamis page, and that will take you to it. Just the search engine itself. When you type in what you want to know, and out of the hundreds of videos and sources that we have, it'll pull right up the teaching that you need to get yourself free, to get others free, and to know true liberty in Jesus Christ. That's Exdunamis. You need to sign up now, tonight. This is the end of that special offer. You need to subscribe to Exdunamis now. Some interesting chats out there. Ryan says from Texas, Ezekiel says Iran fights Israel. Isaiah says Euphrates dries up, and Isaiah says Damascus blows up. Well, that's kind of putting up blood. Dana, now this is interesting. Blessings from Russia. Got a little Russian flag there. There are people who love Jesus and love being free in Russia. I've ministered all over Russia, from Moscow to Siberia. Preacher Bryant, the war is in Revelation. Pre-trib rapture is false. Oh, come on now. All right. We're not going to get into that except to bring it up as an aspect of this whole thing. Now, look, In short, I did a short very recently, just a few days ago, and posted it about the end times. Maybe you saw it. Now, if you haven't watched the shorts, another aspect of this ministry's teaching, these little less than 1 minute quick videos that give you an instant idea of teaching, thinking on a particular topic. But this one that I did it tongue-in-cheek, suggesting that Taylor Swift's demonic entertainment antics are a sign of the end of the world. Well, I didn't know what was about to come. If you didn't see this short, take a look at that short. Our world is going to hell in a handbasket. Fentanyl is flooding across our borders. Weed and mushroom legalization is escalating state by state. The government can't pay its bills. Flash mobs of lawless youth are driving retailers out of business. Homelessness driven by drug addiction is a crisis. 20 billion views on TikTok's witch talk. Only 20% of Americans go to church. The suicide rate for Gen Z is up more than 60% from a decade ago. Jesus is coming soon and the apocalypse can't be far away. And yet, one of the highest trending topics is whether Taylor Swift will be at the NFL Kansas City, New York Jets game this weekend to see her somewhat boyfriend, Travis Kelce. Are you kidding me? This is the woman who uses the Lord's name in vain on stage and sings, "Karma is my God." Now you know why I entitled this short, Taylor Swift and the End of the World. How little did I realize when I posted that there's something a lot more serious than Taylor Swift's amorous adventures was about to take place in this current conflict between the Palestinians in Gaza and Israel. Now, I've been to Israel many, many times. I've been from one end of Israel to the other, including the Golan Heights, right next to the border of Syria and the West Bank. I know the geography, I know the lay of the land. And interestingly enough, I go back far enough, in 1967, I was in Israel just days after the end of the 6 Days War between Israel and Egypt. I didn't know the fighting was going to be taking place when I started my journey toward the Middle East. I had stopped off in the UK and Europe and so on, and the fighting was taking place. I decided to go ahead and go, and they said it was safe to be there at that time because the troops of the nations, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt, that had attacked Israel had been beaten back. But it was very interesting to drive across the landscape, particularly through the Judean desert on the way from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and see by the sides of the roads hundreds of tanks. And most of those were not Israeli tanks. They were Egyptian tanks that had been blown to pieces or disabled and still had not been removed. I could still see the military vehicles here and there burned out, and the signs of the fighting that had taken place just a few days before. Now, that was the 6 Days War. That was a turning point in human history, because that's when Israel captured Sinai, the West Bank, the Golan Heights, and East Jerusalem. And for the first time, and I remember going into Jerusalem to see these massive crowds of Jews with tears streaming down their face, worship for the first time in history since being dispersed in 70 AD at the Wailing Wall, that portion that was once underground, part of the foundation of the temple, Herod's second temple. I was very moved by the scenes that I saw. And now, how different times are. Now, we know, as I said just a second ago, that the death toll is rising. But what I want to do tonight, in addition to take a biblical look at this, is to give you some perspective on what's happening there. Alfredo says this is the Jubilee year. 50 years ago, we paid for abortion laws, and now COVID, Israel, and Ukraine. That's an interesting connection. Okay. Ryan, thank you, Laura and Bob, for your many years of obedience to the Lord. The Revealer. I like the video, everyone. David, I know God more than anyone. Oh, okay. And his favorite place in the universe is Jerusalem. It is the city of angels. Ironic, that's what they call Los Angeles. It's not exactly angelic anymore. So let's talk about terminology and get an understanding of what's happening there, because a lot of this isn't coming across. And let me just say, every time something like this happens, there's an explosion of prophetic pronouncements from everybody who thinks they have a word from God about what this all means. And I would just encourage you, take that stuff with a grain of salt. I've been around long enough to see these prophetic announcements come and go when they refer to contemporary events. And the times that they're wrong, few people hold these individuals accountable, and they just move on to another prophetic insight, some great revelation about what's going on in the world. I'm not making light of it or fun of it. I'm just saying, come on. Let's just look at the reality of what's happening and not feel like we have to have some revelatory, spontaneous insight behind the scenes that nobody else has got. Hamas and Hezbollah. Two very important words. Let's talk about Hamas, because Hamas controls the Gaza Strip. We'll talk more about that in a moment. That's the area from which these kids, literally these kids, have come across the border to rape and kill and murder and slaughter people. The word Hamas stands for Islamic Resistance Movement. So one of the points I want to make to you tonight is that this war is an Islamic war of extreme Islam determined to wipe Israel from the face of the earth. That's what it's about. That's what they are inculcated in. Hamas was founded in 1987. Its stated purpose is to liberate Palestine. We'll talk about that in a moment, because there's no real Palestine left anymore, from the Israeli occupation and establish an Islamic State. That's what they want. So all these idiot protesters you see covering up their faces with masks, so they're so brave, they won't let anybody know who they are. Most of them are socialists. Their signs say socialism, many of the placards that they're displaying. These people are essentially Marxists. They're not trying to liberate the Palestinian people. They want to overturn the political world order of the entire geopolitical universe. But Hamas wants Israel wiped off the face of the earth. That's why they carry out suicide bombings, rocket attacks against civilian people. This was a war against civilians. They were raping and murdering and killing the children of civilians, not army combatants. And they justify these attacks because they say it's a retaliation for Israeli violence against Palestinians. What violence? I don't see Israeli troops on motorcycles motoring their way into the Gaza Strip to take off young women to rape them. I don't see that happening. This is a completely inverted view of reality. This is a terrorist group designed to target civilians. That's Hamas. Now let's talk about Hezbollah. That name means the party of God. What God? Allah. So once again, this is an Islamic war. Now, I'm not saying the majority of Muslims agree with the tactics of this. Of course not. But this is a hardcore group like ISIS that is determined to create a world state of Islam. They seek control of the West Bank. And Iran is behind this, always has been. The latest $6 billion that our government idiotically gave them is just one more way that they help to pay for what's going on over there right now. That's my personal opinion. So the West Bank is the main area that Hezbollah covers. So you have Gaza, which is over to the west, and what they call the West Bank, which is further east, just across on the other side of Israel. Hezbollah controls that part of the Gaza Strip, which really refers to both pieces of land. And then you'll have Hamas controlling Gaza. Now, I've been there. So being on that spot, talking about the West Bank and the Golan Heights, I've been there. And when you're there, you understand why in the 6 Days War, the Israelis are so glad to get control of that, because from those heights, and I've been right up next to the border of Syria, you can just lob any kind of a missile or bomb you want to from there almost anywhere in the nation of Israel easily. I mean, it's like a staging platform for the destruction of Israel. And Israel's never going to give back the West Bank. That's not going to happen. Now, Hezbollah has a military wing that they call the Islamic Resistance. And that's even labeled as a terrorist organization by the United States. But in Lebanon, Hezbollah is a legitimate political party. Hezbollah, they even have seats in the parliament. Hezbollah says its stated purpose is to destroy Israel and again establish an Islamic State. I don't make that up. They say that. Understand against what this is all about. We're not fighting ISIS such as we were some years ago. Now it's shifted. So this Islamic idea of radical Muslims, utterly radical Muslims, is to destroy the nation of Israel, establish an Islamic State, going back to the Ottoman Empire and so on from there. And they admit to getting their training and their weapons directly from Iran. So the other point I want to make, and I've said this several times, this is an Islamic war. This term Palestinian is a term just used to refer to members of a group of people, but they're quite ethnically and culturally diverse, and are primarily associated with this region of historic Palestine. There never was a place called Palestine. It was a general term referring to an ambiguous but roughly defined area around the geographical realm of the current state of Israel. There are people who live there, but they live in other countries. And by the way, I want to say there's some wonderful Palestinian Christians, people who consider themselves to be Palestinian and come from that part of the world. And I've met these people, and they're great Christians. And they live very emotionally tortured lives, being caught in between those two worlds. Very difficult. And you want to pray for somebody, pray for those Palestinian Christians who are caught in the middle of this. But Palestinians live in many parts of the world, not just the Middle East, Pakistan, other places, as part of the Palestinian diaspora when they spread out to different parts of the world. But not all are Muslims. Some are Christians, some are other religious groups. But the leaders, and this is what you need to get, the leaders of the Hamas government, Gaza, and the terrorists who did this killing, they are radical Muslims. Now let's just take a little bit of geography here about Gaza. Because until you've been there and then you really look at a map and study it, it's really hard to understand what's happening. By the way, Rose, thank you for educating me. I stopped watching the news this year. It just didn't do it for me. Sean, is this the Gog and Magog, Ezekiel 38 and 39 starting? Well, we're going to get to that in a moment, okay? And we'll quote from it and we'll talk about that. So let's go to the map. I've got a couple of maps here, and we're going to show these maps on the screen. The first map we're going to show you is this map of Israel. So we've got it up there now. So if you will look to your left, find Gaza on your screen. And if you're on a cell phone, you've got a real problem trying to find Gaza. It is so tiny. Like I said earlier, it's about approximately 6 miles wide, 25 miles long. That's it. An estimated 2 to 2.5 million people live there. That's not much. And they're all crammed into this little space. And by the way, nobody wants them. No. Lebanon doesn't even really want them. Egypt doesn't want them. They border Egypt on the south. But it's this little tiny thing you can barely see. Now imagine our world right now being a powder keg because of this tiny sliver of land. I don't know how to make a comparison. Somebody says like the city of Omaha, about the same size. I think Omaha is bigger. I mean, some of you folks out there in West Texas, can you imagine what 6 miles, 25 miles looks like? Not much. And that would just be a blink of the eye driving across West Texas. That is putting the world in jeopardy of World War III. How is that possible? Let's take a close-up look at it now. So look over to your left again. And there it is. I blew it up for you. And you can see the diagonal lines. That's where they have made incursions out into Israel. But again, it's a very small distance. The world is allowing this very tiny group in this tiny little piece of dirt on earth to risk the welfare of 6+ billion people and the possibility of a nuclear conflagration if Ezekiel 38 and 39 were to come to pass. Isn't that interesting to see what we're really fighting about? What the Jews are really fighting about? What the world is in uproar? I mean, every time I turned on my computer today, there are dozens and dozens of news accounts about this. And don't even start looking at the preachers out there who have got something to say about this. Everybody's an expert on this, and everybody's pontificating on it. And it's just exploded all over the internet. It's just that. If this is Israel, that's not even the size of Gaza by comparison. And yet, a handful of kids on motorbikes have turned the world upside down. This is a small piece of land. So you've got Israel, if you look at it again, on the east, and the north, Egypt on the south. Egypt doesn't like these people. They don't let them into Egypt. They want them stuck over there in Israel. The Palestinians are basically of Arabic descent, of Ishmael. Not all of them, because a lot of them are cultural Palestinians. They're not true descendants of Ishmael, so to speak. I mean, this is Isaac Ishmael all over again. That's really what this is about. And I don't know how many of you know about how this got started, but it really got started after World War I, when the Ottoman Empire lost in World War I. Now, who is that? Well, if you don't know, you really need to know. You really need to look it up. The Ottoman Empire was a Turkish empire that was trying to take over the world in the name of Allah, in the name of radical Islam. And they did control much of that part of the world. That's what the Crusades were all about, trying to get back the Holy Land from this empire that became eventually known as the Ottoman Empire. Well, this Ottoman Empire was defeated in World War I. So then the British took control of this part of the world. They carved up all of the Middle East, and Britain got this portion. And there was a League of Nations, which is the precursor to the United Nations, mandate in 1947. Finally proved by the United Nations that they would partition the land, create separate Jewish and separate Arabic states in so-called Palestine. And that's another whole thing about what Palestine is. It's historically a designation of a roughly geographical space in what is now known as Israel, but there's no technical boundary. So there was something called the Balfour Declaration. And that was a public statement issued by the British government in 1917 during the First World War, announcing its support of a national home for the Jewish people. In Palestine, where the Ottoman region functioned with a small minority of Jewish people. So the Arab population, including the people in Gaza, rejected that. Well, then, as the result of what the United Nations said in the Balfour Declaration, Israel declared independence, 1948. That led to all these Arab-Israeli wars. So as a result of this, Gaza came under Egyptian control originally, until, as I said a moment ago, the 6 Days War in 1967, Israel captured Gaza from Egypt, captured the West Bank and Jerusalem. Now, in an effort to make peace in good faith, I regret it now, in 2005, Israel withdrew from Gaza, and Hamas, this radical Islamic State ideology group, came in, took over. They are the ones who started this conflict, financed mostly by Iran. You see some speculation that the government's been tiptoeing around that. I don't know why. You can have your own conspiratorial guess about that. But for some reason, nobody wants to stand up to Iran. Everybody knows there was a meeting in early October where this was planned. This was reported in the Wall Street Journal. This is not made up stuff on some conspiratorial website. Hamas started this. So how is this related to other things like Ukraine? Well, Annie, thank you. She said, I was traumatized by watching the news and those bodies. I've seen dead bodies before, but this was carnage, yeah. Jeff, when do you think the third temple will rebuild? In the tribulation? Yes. Silver, isn't the same area of ancient Israel where the Philistines used to live? Well, there's some people who believe that the Palestinians, as loosely defined, were descendants of the Philistines. Most don't think that is the case. Most think that they are of Arabic, Ishmaelic origin. But there's a lot of dispute about that. Diane says Isaac versus Ishmael. I said that earlier. I say it again. So America has been the main defender of Israel, the main supplier of arms. But because of the Ukraine war, no, I'm not picking sides here. I'm just stating facts. That's chewed up a huge chunk of the American arsenal and our money. So more of our money, more of my weapons has been going to defeat the Russians. Now we get to Ezekiel 38 and 39, foretelling the invasion of Israel by this massive coalition of Russian Islamic forces in the last days. Gog, of the land of Magog, which some believe to be Russia, is going to convene an overwhelming army of Muslim nations, many believe, with Iran at the helm, and they're going to launch an assault from the north. So now let's get specifically to the Bible, okay? By the way, did you all catch my appearance on the very heavily listened to podcast, The Parabnormal? Not paranormal, parabnormal. My thanks to Scott for having me on his show. I'm very gracious. It was on right after I was here last week. I hope you got a chance to listen to it. Let's read what the scripture says. Excuse me, Ezekiel 38. We're not going to read all of 38 and 39. We're just going to read the first part of 38. Now, the word of the Lord came to me, this is Ezekiel, saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I'm against you, O Gog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, I will turn you around, poke hooks into your jaw, and lead you out with all your army, horses, and horsemen, all splendidly clothed, a great company with buckles and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, Libya are with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his troops, the house of Togarmah, from the north, and all his troops, many people are with you. So let's talk about that passage for a moment, okay? So this is the prophecy of a future war that's going to involve Israel and a coalition of nations, as we just read, led by Gog and Magog. So in Ezekiel 38, God is telling the prophet Ezekiel that Gog and all these nations are going to attack Israel, as we know Israel today, and the allied nations will attack Israel in the last days. But God says he will intervene to protect Israel and defeat Gog's forces. In Ezekiel 39, the prophecy goes on, God causing Gog's armies to turn against each other and bringing judgment on them. God says this act of judgment is going to display his sovereignty to all the nations, and then God promises to restore the fortunes of Israel and give them lasting peace and security. So this prophecy points to a final climactic battle in the end times when God supernaturally protects Israel from war. That's obviously not where we are right now, but protects them from an invading force, not a bunch of kids on bikes slaughtering people because they think they're going to get 70 virgins in heaven. No, that's not what this is about. Some think that Gog and Magog are symbolic. Others think they are these very specific nations. But the overall message is that God saves his people, Israel, and proves his power. So where do we go with that? Well, the real question is whether this invasion is going to be pre or post-tribulation, and whether it's pre or post-millennial. Take your pick. Okay, what do I think? Well, I'm still pre-trib, okay? I haven't wavered on that, though some have out there, and we may have friendly differences. But I just believe I'm going up with Jesus, and it's going to happen before all hell totally breaks loose. That's my personal opinion, all right? But be it as it may, the popular evangelical biblical interpretation is this: Cush is Sidon and Egypt. Gomer is Ukraine. Magog is an amalgamation of Islamic nations, including Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. Persia is Iran. Put is Libya. Rosh is Russia. Togarmah and Tubal are Turkey and Syria. Okay. Ryan, on TikTok, they remove my videos showing what's happening. Well, I don't know what you put up there, but anyway. Lilo, Steel City's finest. Are you from Pittsburgh? Jesus is the only way. Carl, God save the children. Preacher Bryant, there you are again. Gaza's about the size of Manhattan. Well, roughly so. That's it. Manhattan's a small island, actually. Ryan's at it again. Palestine history, Ottoman Empire, League of Nations. Yes, 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 yes. 2005, Hamas took over. Yes, yes, that's just what I was saying. Sean, update. I heard that Lebanon are starting to shoot rockets in the north of Israel. Yes, well, that's Hezbollah, as I was talking about a moment ago. So you've got Hamas in Gaza, but up north. Let's look at that map again there. And show the one, if you would, please, with the big one. Showing the larger picture there with the nation surrounding Israel. All right, now we got it. No, that's Gaza, the other one. Okay, so you can, yeah, that's Gaza there. Can you show the other one that's showing, okay, all right, we're going to try to get to it. But my point is, I want you to see, if you look up north, where Lebanon is, all right, now we got it. Where Lebanon is up there, that's where Hezbollah is. So it's like sort of a pincher movement, as they used to say from World War II with the Germans. So you've got this group coming in from Gaza in the south, and then you got, which is Hamas, and then you got Hezbollah. Now, if these, now, what really would make this interesting, and we're not out of this thing yet, is if Syria over here, at least over here to me, from to my right to your left, if Syria decides to come across the border in the Golan Heights and invade Israel, that's not an impossibility right now with the way things are. All right? So, we're not out of this yet. And the fact that they have started firing rockets, Hezbollah has, means Hezbollah and Hamas basically hate each other. Remember, Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria, they both are struggling for power. These are two Islamic organizations, very radical, filling the vacuum left by ISIS, and now they are struggling against each other because they both want the power. They both want the control. The trio singers, interesting. Thank you, Bob, for training Greg Smith. He's helping my daughter with DID. Wonderful man of God. Greg Smith served many years as a missionary in Germany. In fact, that's where I first met him, was over there in Germany. Had a great work for God over there, and we did help to train him in deliverance. But he's got a great ministry of his own. I think last time, Greg, I heard you were back in North Carolina, but wherever you are, DID, dissociative identity disorder. That's just kind of an interesting little bit here. Thank you so much for that. All right, so let me just try to pull this all together for you now. First of all, there's danger in biblical speculation of current events. I've seen this through the years. I remember when I was a little kid. You know, I was just starting to read. Maybe I was 10, 11, 12, something like that. And, you know, some of you may know my dad was a preacher before I was born. And he was a pastor. And so he had a huge library of books. We're talking really old books here, okay? And books that were printed during World War II. And I wasn't that far removed from World War II, you know, a couple of decades, not even removed. And so what happened in Nazi Germany was very fresh in everybody's minds. And he had these books, stacks of them, all of them, prophecy preachers declaring without equivocation, Hitler was the Antichrist. That's not those who were saying the Pope was the Antichrist. He had a bunch of those too. But these were saying Hitler is the Antichrist. So we got to be really careful. When things like this current fighting takes place, there's this tendency of God's people to look for markers in the Bible that assure them things are not out of control. I understand that. Yes, Ezekiel does speak of Israel dwelling in peace when those around them start a surprise attack. I believe that's going to happen. Now, when is that going to happen? Many people believe it's at the end of the millennium. Some don't even believe in a literal millennium. Some believe it's in the tribulation or the beginning of the tribulation. But what I do want to say, and we can state with certainty, is that what's going on right now is just a setup job. It's getting things ready. There's much we could say from a prophetic standpoint about what the scriptures talk about, the state of humanity at the time of the rise of the Antichrist and so on. But we just know it's a precursor. But I want you to just get grounded for a moment in three basic biblical principles. So before you start running off about this prophet and that apostle and this prophecy preacher and this guy over here and this one over here, I'm not putting it down. I'm saying many of them are bad. Many of them have great insights. Thank God for people who have an interest in this. But let's focus on where we can firmly be rooted. First of all, Matthew 24. Passage about the end of times. Remember what Jesus said in verse 36. But that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. So nobody knows exactly for certain how everything's going to play out. No one knows when Christ is going to return. No one knows precisely when the tribulation or the millennium will occur. Only the Father in heaven. Second principle. That same chapter, verse 6, Jesus spoke of there would be wars and rumors of wars. I'm reading a great book right now by Susan Bauer called The Ancient World, A History of the Ancient World. It's fascinating. It's this massive book. And page after page after page after page is about all the thousands of civilizations over a 4,000-year or so time span that rose and fell, rose and fell, rose and fell, rose and fell. Some may have lasted several decades, some just a few years, some a few days. Some dynasties lasted for centuries. But war, constant turmoil, struggle, killing, murder, slaughter. This is nothing new. What's unique about this is that it specifically involves the land of Israel in their biblical place of promise being brought back from the diaspora. But Jesus said, this is the second principle. What's the first principle? Only the Father knows when all of this is going to happen. Secondly, Matthew 24, again, that great chapter about the end of time. See that you are not troubled, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Wars, rumors of wars, things like what are going on right now. The end is not yet. That's the thing we have to be careful of. And I think from my perspective, as someone who ministers healing, exorcism, and deliverance, I always try to keep anchored to Revelation 12:12 when I think about these things. For the devil has come down to you having great wrath because he knows he has a short time. So there's speculation about what may or may not happen and when it may or may not happen. But one thing we know is the devil senses the end is coming. He doesn't know the time. The Father knows it, but he's angry. He's running out of time. He comes down with wrath. And whether that happens in the tribulation or before the tribulation, of course, that is open to question. Emmanuel says deliverance is more vital and important than ever before. Exactly what I'm trying to say. It isn't likely that this war between Gaza and Israel is going to bring Bible prophecy to the final fulfillment of Ezekiel. It's a setup. It's a preparation. Well, here's what's more likely going to happen. I believe this is significant. It's the most significant thing since I was there in Israel right after the 6 Days War. This is the next big leap forward. There have been other little things that have happened, but this is a big jump. This is going to change the interaction of nations in the Middle East. For one thing, the Abrahamic Accords, the peace process between Israel and Saudi Arabia and these other Arabic nations, that could grind to a halt. And that was a good, positive thing that was taking place in terms of allowing Israel to live in peace. It may completely wipe out the Abraham Accords. Now, that's the agreement that was brokered by President Trump. It was signed in 2020 between Israel and Arab countries. It normalized relations between Israel and Muslim countries, but more importantly, it finally formally recognized the state of Israel. But the current Middle Eastern instability now may shatter that. I share the eschatological concerns with those interested in Bible prophecy. I also realize that some people become obsessed with this and can take their eyes off the way that Satan is destroying the lives of people right now. Not over there in a tiny little sliver of land, but right here in the good old USA. Remember, Israel's greatest defender on the international stage always has been and still is America. So what do you do with what's going on? You pray for the peace of Jerusalem. You grieve with those who've lost loved ones in this senseless violence. But all of this should compel you to get your own life in order. No doubt the acts of these young, brainwashed militants on our motorbikes, that's demonic. Come on. There's a bunch of kids coming in there with AK-47s, blowing away everything. Innocent animals, babies, children, chopping their heads off. If that is not demonic, what is? But don't get focused on that. Don't get caught up on that. It's horrific. It's horrible, and it jars you. What you want to focus on is getting the demons out of your own life. You can't go over there and get those kids delivered. But you can get yourself delivered. You can get your family delivered, and you can get your loved ones delivered. What about your own life? Getting the demons out of you. Not them, you. You get delivered. You get freedom. So that you are spiritually prepared to face the demonic intensity of these last days. And one of the ways you can do that is by enrolling in Bob Larson University. An expanse of more than 60 courses, over 200,000 words, scores of hours of training at your fingertips to really understand the war that we are all fighting, not against Hamas or Hezbollah, but against the forces of darkness, against demons, false religions, witchcraft, Satanism, the occult, the New Age, and all of this. That's the war you and I need to focus on right now while we pray for Jerusalem and do what we can to help Israel. So enroll in Bob Larson University and take advantage of this last opportunity to get into the ground floor at a special introductory subscription before midnight tonight. Right now, go. They'll put that QR code up on the screen again, or go to boblarson.org and click on the Ex-Dunamis site. Follow right through. Get yourself signed up now. Sign up for a year. Get 30% savings on that because we want you to stick around for a while. You'll never get through the hundreds and hundreds of videos in a month. So stay with us. Subscribe. Go do it right now to XD. And by the way, mark on your calendar right now, Friday night, Phoenix, Arizona. Go to our website, find the location, the Salt River Courtyard area, to give you the details and the address and so on. And get behind a ministry like this with your financial support. We don't just talk about what the devil is doing half a world away. We do. And I think it's great that other people are focusing on it, and we're getting the word of God to people who don't understand this in terms of eschatological related events. But get behind a ministry that isn't just talking about what's going on over there, but is dealing with the demons here and now. I do it all day long, every day. I'll be up early tomorrow morning, right in front of that computer, virtually ministering to people all over the world, walking out of there into our prayer room, ministering to people live and in person, back and forth, all day long tomorrow. It's what I do. I can do it with you. Give us the opportunity to do that. Be concerned about what's there, but be concerned about what's there in you. Deal with the real demons here and now in your life, in the lives of those you love, the people you care about. Yes, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, but pray for deliverance and freedom in your own life. Phoenix, see you Friday night. Go right now to boblarson.org, click on Ex-Dunamis, get yourself subscribed. why not also check out the possibility of a virtual encounter with us so we can minister to you one-on-one, me or one of our associate ministers. We're here to serve you. And thank you for your financial support. We had 2 computers that helped to run the ministry implode this week. We're going to have thousands of dollars of outlay, taking care of all that and getting everything reprogrammed and up and going again. You know, if I had 5 people right now who had sent $1,000 to help out this ministry to cover that, it'd just immediately take a lot of pressure off me so I can continue to do what I do. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your support. Thank you for everything you do to stand by this ministry. And no matter what's going on anywhere in the world at any time, you can get free, stay free, and live free.
Your financial support and prayers make it possible for us to bring hope for the hurting and freedom to those in spiritual bondage. For the latest information regarding ministry outreaches, go to boblarson.org or call 303-980-1511.